All right, well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Trig Podcast with Joey and Gosa TV here with your daily success podcast. How are you? Talking today about how to be a successful parent, a great parent, when you feel you're losing control of your kids. And so my guess is that as all of our children and young adults are going back to school, as you know, we have 3 teens that are all basically in college. You begin to feel like you're losing control. Like they're not, as little as they used to be. They're not just jumping in the car and doing whatever you want them to do. Anybody know what I'm talking about, right? Man, life goes by quickly and they begin to make their own decisions. We have a 20, 18, and 16-year-old. So obviously for us, we have to parent way differently than when they were 8, 6, and 4. And so how do you adapt to that tug of war that begins to happen so that we don't lose our kids to all the things that are evil in this world? Weed and pornography and alcohol and partying and materialism and all the things that concern them and us. And yet, how do you give them that sense of peace or trust, which is obviously what they mostly need? How do you make them feel like you're trusting them? And then how do you calm your own mind down? Because I know for me, you begin to think, well, am I being a good parent? Am I just a great example or not? And so you have all of these questions that you wrestle with. And so I want to give you some tips on how to go about working through some of those concerns so that your child can feel successful, you can feel successful, and that both of you together, both parent and child, can feel like they are growing together and learning more about each other. So I want to give you some tips here, how to be a great or a successful parent when you begin to lose control. So number one is listen to their reasons. Listening to them is the hardest thing, I think, for me at least, because I'm such an advice giver and I want to jump in and use all of my superpower experience and wisdom of the last 50 years. You have to listen. And my wife is a great compliment to me. I'm definitely the talker and she's a listener. I mean, I listen, but you have to know your bent. Are you one who likes to talk a lot and you struggle listening to your children, to your teens, to your adults? You have to discipline your mind to listen. Now, what does listening mean? It means asking questions. Tell me more about why you're making that decision. Can you help me understand why this person is safe in your life? I would like to know more about where you went and what was it like. These are all leading questions, open-ended questions. They're not yes or no questions. They are more conversational questions. They are providing for the child, obviously based on their age, a way for them to speak and to tell you what they think. Now, here's the thing about listening is that you have to keep listening, or as they call it, active listening. It's not just waiting for them to say something and then you jump in. It's not just asking once and then going on a 40-minute rant, which is what I tend to do. It's listening, and then when they say, for example, well, Mom, I wanted to stay out because I had to study, and that's why I came home late. Then it's you saying, well, tell me, how did the study, how was the study session? Was it successful? And that is maybe too much of a yes or no question. So maybe a better question would be, do you feel like that place or that coffee shop or that someone's house is helping you learn the material? And maybe they can begin to meditate or to process their own actions. I think that's the biggest gift we can give our children, regardless of their age, is to help them to process their own actions. And it all depends on their age and who they are and all these things, and we'll get into that. But listening and continuously listening. So I would say in a 20-minute conversation, you should probably ask them something 4 or 5 times every 5 minutes. So try to use that kind of that system in your own conversations with your children. Every 5 minutes, pause whatever you're saying to them, no matter how mad you are or how upset you feel, and ask them, tell me more. Tell me, why do you think that? Can you help me understand? I don't quite get it. Can you help me out? Those are all very good listening questions. Number two, very important, is adapt your expectations to their age, personality. And as you know, I'm a big Enneagram fan. Their Enneagram. Now, let me start with, what does this mean in terms of age, personality, and Enneagram? Well, if you're talking to a 6-year-old, let's say even their gender, if it's a boy, you're going to talk to that young boy differently than you're going to talk to a 13-year-old girl, right? I mean, obviously. So you want to, when you are giving out your advice, for example, if I'm talking to, in my case here, to our son who's 16, he's a boy, obviously, he's driving, but I know that his personality is more quiet and more of a thinker. And Enneagram 5 is what I think. So basically, the Enneagram is a personality type of thing. And so because I know he's more analytical, I'm not going to ask him a lot of difficult or emotional questions about why did you do this? Or I will ask him more, tell me the details of what you saw. How many people are going with you? And those are more like kind of accusatory questions, right? They're more like interrogation questions. So I wouldn't always use those kind of words, but maybe say it something like, were there 4 people in the car or 5? Did you plan on being out till 10 or 11? Or maybe a nicer way to do that is, are you thinking of being home by 10 or 11? So more detailed kinds of questions because of the personality. Now, let's say I have a 13-year-old girl and she's more bubbly and extroverted. So obviously a very social child is going to think more in her feelings and more in her extrovert, right? And in thinking more about other people and how she feels with other people, not so much just herself. So you may want to ask something like, how did you feel being with so many friends? Or how about this? How did you feel being with so many new friends? Because now you're getting to the feeling of not knowing your friends, not knowing your surroundings. And now you're asking your child, let's say a 13-year-old daughter, how did she feel about being with strangers? Did she feel comfortable? Did she feel embarrassed, ashamed, bold, and alive? And so when you give advice to each child, you have to think about their personality. And it's harder when they're younger, obviously, if they're, 5, 3, and 1. But even then, or if you only have one child or two, 5 and 3, whatever it is. But even at that early age, you can begin to notice what they respond to. So Canela, who's our oldest, she's 20. She is quiet. I like to be very tender with her. Unless I really want to get her attention, then I may be a little more bold. But most of the time, I'm going to be more tender, more caring, more hugs with her. With our second one, who's 18, she's more outward and more bold, I guess you could say. With her, I'm also tender, but I'm more going to speak back and forth with her because I know she can handle the conversation and she can kind of like talk back and forth in a respectful way pretty well. With David, as I said, who's younger, I may be more process-oriented, more tender because he's a young male. And you know that young males, they develop later in terms of physically, emotionally. Well, physically, they develop quick, but emotionally and psychologically, it takes them longer to feel strong and powerful. So you have to kind of adapt your expectations, your input, based on who they are, what you see, so that the point is so that they feel like you've listened to them and that they feel and you feel like you've gotten through to them. And that getting through to them, it really depends a lot on these things, their age or personality, their Enneagram type. And a lot of that is up to us to understand some of these things. Number 3 is calm yourself down. This is maybe the most important one, isn't it? Especially for those of us that are hot-blooded, right? My biggest mistake and maybe success is that I overreact. I don't calm myself down before. I'll listen. And then when I'm ready, I go for it and I explode because I have so many things that I've been holding in for, let's say, a couple of days. And so I struggle with calming myself down. And so this is very important to me. Now, as I said, Rochelle is so amazing in my life because she is very calm. And so it's good to have, and this is even now getting into parenting as a couple or with someone else, you have to know how to balance each other out. I don't mean the dad is the passive and the mom is mean, or vice versa. The dad is mean and the mom is passive. I don't mean it that way. Don't lower each other's gifts to just mad and nice. Think a little bit more professional or more nuanced than that. If, let's say in my case, Rochelle is more calm, I'm going to want her to talk to that rebellious child first instead of me, because I may overreact, even though I may be right in what I'm saying, because some of us, we have this NI, now where I'm getting into the Myers-Briggs, we have these connector kind of sensors in our body. We have like 1,000 little sensors. We can pick up energy really fast. And so we know right away if that child is lying or if they're telling us the truth. You have to calm that superpower down. And you have to then think a little bit more analytically. If anything, just wait a little bit longer. And then you want to speak your truth. But now, if you are very calm, cool, and collected, you may want to try to be bold. You may want to calm yourself down, meaning from the being quiet and maybe being afraid of conflict. And you may want to say, son, I don't like that. I wasn't very happy with your decision, or that made me upset. One of the things that Rochelle does so amazingly is, and you'll hear me talk a lot about her because she is an amazing parent. I've learned a lot from her, and I think we work together well. But she'll say something like, I feel very upset. She'll say that to me. She'll say that to our children, even though they're older now. And it's so beautiful because, when she says stuff like that, it cuts right through all of the noise and all of the arguing and the excuses and all of that back and forth stuff. When you express emotion as a parent, and even maybe more importantly, when the children can express their emotions to you, you've won. You've succeeded. That is where true change happens, is when your heart and theirs is open. And the way to get there is by saying things like, I was upset when that happened, or I felt hurt, or I felt afraid when you were gone. I'm concerned. I'm trying to trust, but I feel afraid. That is very important. And if you're not that way, then you want to practice those things. If your child isn't that way, you want to maybe write down some of these phrases and expressions so they know even what to say. The other day, I was talking to our middle child, and she was saying she was beginning to cry. We were talking about some pretty good, pretty real stuff, and she then laughed, and we kind of left a little bit upset. And I called her right away, and we talked it through, and I apologized, and she also understood. So all is well. But when she came home, she was saying, "Oh, I hate when I cry," and I said, "I felt like crying too." I said, "I also felt sad." And I said to her, if you can't cry with your father, then who can you cry with? And it was a very beautiful, tender moment that touches me even to this day. Because when you've done that, you have everything. When you have two people that love each other and they're able to open their hearts, not stats and data and or anger even, but more like sadness. There's the deeper levels of emotion, right? Anger and violence is the lowest type of emotion, but the higher ways of expressing ourselves are things like sadness or joy or the things that we love. That's what we all respond to is those things. So calm yourself down enough to be able to express your own, not frustrations per se, but your own sadness, your own need, your own dreams and desires. And if anything, it's a model, an example for your children to follow in your footsteps. So that's number 3, calm yourself down. Number 4 is believe the best of them. I think this is definitely what they want, right? I certainly see that as they get older. The older that they get now, 20, and I'm sure you may have kids that are now 30 or 40, or maybe yours are little people. So, but I've noticed so far in these 20 years of parenting that they all want to be trusted without a lot of excuses or reasons to trust. They want to be trusted because you are their parents, because you love them. And I think this is a very important thing that you have to know, we have to know, is that children today, regardless of their age, nobody trusts them. Do you trust the people that you work with? No. Do you trust the people on the freeway that you drive next to? No, of course not. We don't trust people because you are afraid that they'll hurt you or judge you or tell you something horrible. So your children, no matter their age, they are feeling the same pressures also at work, at school, at home, in their own minds, of course, in these things, right? Of course, they're feeling all of these horrible pressures and expectations. You want your home to be, like I was telling Isabella, you want this home it's like the paradise. It's like paradise in the Bible. You know, like where Adam and Eve, it says that they were with God and they were with each other and unashamed. And they had this beautiful connection with each other and with God. That's what your house needs to be like. If your house is a war zone and everyone's slamming doors and everyone is yelling and cussing at each other, which is so typical these days, then something is wrong and you need to change that. You as a parent need to say, Jesus, help me to change the atmosphere in this house so that instead of violence and silence and hate and ignoring each other, there's love and communication and kindness so that your kids can feel in their minds, bodies, and emotions that you trust them. Trust is built. Trust is also lost, but trust can be rebuilt. Even if you have a bad relationship right now with your teens or your adult kids, or now maybe you have grandkids, it's never too late to rebuild that trust with them. Even if they don't live at home, obviously ours do live here, and I hope they live here the rest of their lives. Typical, huh? Latino parent. But no, I mean, Canela lived off campus or on campus for a year, and it was hard, but it was great. And I really I hope that they all can find their own way and their own places to live. It's important for them to have their own space because I've realized that the more that you keep them indoors, the more they want to rebel and act out because the kids are very smart these days. They always, like all of us, are looking for equilibrium. Okay, where am I kind of the servant, right? Or do I have to do what other people tell me to do? Okay, that's called house or home. Where am I always being told what to do? Well, home, but also school. Where am I being bossed around all day long? Okay, that's called work. Well, where am I going to be free? Where can I do whatever I want to do? You see, if the kids even if they're in their own rooms, and these days, of course, I mean, because of economics, most kids are sharing a room with 2 or 3 other people, maybe their parents. So if your kids don't have anywhere where they're independent and on their own, even if it's going to the corner store with their friends, they will feel boxed in and they will feel like they need to rebel, depending on their personality. But it's just human nature. So you want to create a home environment where they feel like you trust them and they feel like they can talk to you. And Rochelle always has been great at this. We always would have meals together every night. This is before both of us got super crazy busy with work, especially. And but even last night we ate together, only 3 of us out of the 5, but 3 of us ate together. On Sunday nights, we try to eat together, all 5 of us. Maybe twice, 3 times a week. We do this, but now when they were young, like 8, 10, 12, we ate together every afternoon. And yes, Rochelle would come home after teaching all day and do a quick taco salad or a spaghetti or whatever, just so that we could eat together. Or maybe it's the dad who is that way. You know, one of you, or maybe you're a single parent and you have 10 jobs. Maybe you have a friend who can bring you some food over, or try not to go to McDonald's or Jack in the Box to get meals, because not only is it bad for your budget, but it's bad for the kids as well and for you. But Prepare some meals ahead of time. Maybe cook a casserole. I know Rochelle would do that when they were young, and we can eat that all week long, 2-3 times. The point is, find food and ways, things that you can eat that are healthy, but that bring everyone together, especially when they're young. If they're babies, obviously you have to bottle feed them, so that's not going to work. But as they get older, bring your family together so that you can talk, so that you can look at each other in the eyes and not just the top of their heads because they're staring down at the phone or their iPad. Don't have them bring their iPads. Turn the Wi-Fi off. Turn the power off and use candles, for goodness sake. I don't care what we do, what you do. But the point is, look at each other in the eyes. Look at their zits. Look at their smiles. Look at their big noses. Look at their glasses. Look at their silly, I don't know, their silly hair, whatever. They're beautiful kids. And have them look at you and your wrinkles and you're losing your hair and you're overweight and tired. Have them just stare at each other. Just look at each other. And I'm telling you, just looking at your child in their eyes, whether it's at night or at the dinner table, it's priceless. You don't look at each other in the car or church or work, right? We're always just staring at each other's back of our heads, or like I said, the top of our heads from staring at our phones. Try to find ways to just look at each other in the eyes. And then the last thing is trust them over to God. At each stage of the game, when they were little, it was easier to do it all yourself and not trust God. But Rochelle, I remember when they got sick, and I think they all had strep throat, all 3 of them. And I think even me, or maybe it was 4 of us. So she had like 4 sick people at the house. I think we were in Colorado. Even though they were young, and maybe, like I said, at each stage, this is different. She had to trust us over, especially them, to God in terms of the strep throat. She had done everything, the medicines and cleaning the house. And, I remember one day she spent like a whole day just cleaning every spoon, every fork, everything in the whole house. And finally she cried on my shoulder and said, "David, I can't do this anymore. I have to trust them over to God." And she wrote a verse and just like a statement that she made, something like, "I need to trust God on this," and put it over the sink, the kitchen sink. So every time she would do the dishes or just look out the window, she saw this, I remember it was green, this green sign with black Sharpie, a black marker that said something like, "The Lord is my strength," or, "They belong to you, Lord, not to me." Now, as they get older and now they're at college and they just zoom by out of here, they all have 3 cars, they all have their jobs, they all have their own money. That's all positive. But of course, I feel like I'm losing control because I am. It's supposed to be this way, right? Leave and cleave, the Bible says. And so I have to trust him more. And last night I was like worrying. I had dreams, nightmares about what could go wrong now that David is driving, or Isabella is now in college and she's our social butterfly, and who is she going to meet? And all of these what ifs. I have to trust them over to God. I can't go, I want to. I can't go follow them around. I want to, right? Or maybe you're on the opposite end. You grew up so controlled by your parents that you just want to let them loose. You have to get in there. You can't just let them parent themselves, no matter their age. I remember I heard something once about the 4 C's of parenting. I think when they're young, you're their caregiver. When they're older, now you're their coach. And then, or meaning like when they're teens, and then when they get older, you're now their counselor. I think that's very powerful. And so you have to think about, where are you? Where are they in terms of their stage of life, their age, their personality, and then where are you at? And adapt. Now, as they get older, I'm beginning to definitely be a coach. I'm not quite to the counselor stage because they don't have kids, so they're not quite there yet. But I can see in 5, maybe even less or maybe more years, I will be their counselor. Meaning they'll only call me when they need help. And that's what I do. I'm 50 years old. And when do I call my mom? I don't call her every day. She's not my coach anymore. She's not my caregiver, that's for sure. But she's my counselor. So when I'm stressing over church, or, someone yelled at me, or someone said something dumb about my this or that, Who do I call? My mom, because she's my mom and she's my counselor. And so you have to know kind of where the kids are at, where you're at. But it is about trusting them over to God, because that's the point, right? I mean, we raise them up in the way that they should go, so that when they grow up, they won't leave the ways of God. I love Canela. Maybe I'll close with this. Yesterday we were having this kind of discussion, argument, these two opinions basically that we talked about for a while. And she was also there. So it was the three of us, our two girls and myself. And so then afterwards, we all felt a little weird. So I called them both and we talked it out. But at the end, last night, I think Canela texted me or talked to me or something. And she said, "Papi, you've taught me so much. You've taught me how to be independent and not need a boy to be happy. You've taught me to trust God. You've taught me to put him first in my life." And that obviously, moved me to pieces. And then maybe something even more moving and yet simple that she told me about the other day. She has a little bunny upstairs, and the bunny, you know how they like to eat through cords. It ate through her Wi-Fi router. And so she was upset and sad. And she came downstairs with the Wi-Fi router basically in two pieces, the wire just eaten through by this bunny that loves to eat live wires. And I said, yeah, well, I said, you know what to do. And she's like, I said, just buy another one. They're only like $25. Instead of buying another one, because I said, you're going to buy it out of your own budget, So she thought hard about it, and she went to our little, whatever, utility area, and she found some black electrical tape. And years ago, you know how we are as fathers, I've always taught them to just fix things. And I am that way. I love to fix everything, especially with duct tape or electrical tape, right? That black electrical tape. I use it like Band-Aids or like Advil, I guess. I use it for everything. I think electrical tape is the brown man's duct tape. I think so. That and painter's tape and masking tape and all that stuff. And of course, Scotch tape, right? Anyway, so the point is she fixed her own router and she was so proud. And she said, "Papi, look, you taught me how to do this." I was so happy. You have to trust them over to God. You have to let them fail, figure it out on their own, because they have to do that to succeed and to survive in this life. But you also have to teach them well. You have to teach them how to do things, how to make their own meals, how to drive a car, how to iron their own clothes, how to ride their own bus, how to pay for their own phone, how to change the oil, how to iron their shirts, how to pay their bills, how to balance their own their own budget, how to date, how to talk about sexuality, how to talk about pot and weed and drugs and being a virgin or being, saving yourself till marriage and dating, all the stuff that is just reality. It was reality for us. And now with Instagram, especially in Snapchat, children today, they see so much. You and I are there to help them process what they see, what they feel. And if they don't talk, you keep asking questions, you keep listening. And as I always say, if you ever want my coaching, I have a website there, davidtrig.com/coaching, where I can help you with any of these tips. So I think that these things are so powerful. I think we all agree that they're not easy. It's not easy being a parent in the 21st century. It's not easy being a child in the 21st century, but we can do it. And this is how we're going to change this world that's needing so much help and so much love, is by being an example of Jesus to our parents, to our kids, being people that are filled with the Holy Spirit ourselves. And I want to just encourage you, if you are struggling in your parenting, you know what? It's not more techniques that you need. You need more Jesus. You need more church. You need to go to church every week, 2-3 times a week, so that you can find the advice from people like me and many others who love God, who love Jesus, and who can give you some other tips and advice, just things that they can do that they've tried. But if you're on your own, you don't go to church, or you only go once in a long, whatever, every 3 months, how are you going to learn? I mean, YouTube, just your mom, those are great things, but you need a community, a village, as we say, right? You need a spiritual community. And I really believe that it has to be a spiritual community. YouTube is not going to talk to you about God. Your mom may or may not, hopefully. But the church, that's why we're there, to support you spiritually and psychologically, physically, emotionally. The church is meant to be the center of your life, a place where you can find all kinds of coaching and help and peace and worship God and hear his word, which then changes you and calms you down so you can go and parent your kids. So I want to encourage you to do that. Sorry about the music there if it was too loud. Let me bring that down. I want to encourage you to come to my church here in the city of Bellflower. I live in Long Beach, but the church is in the city of Bellflower. All the info will be at the bottom of this video. Come over. If you haven't been lately, come every week. Come 2-3 times a week. Hear the word of God. Let the Holy Spirit change you from the inside out so that you have the patience for your kids and the love that they need. And bring them as well. No matter if they're 18, 20, or 30, bring them, drag them, get them involved in singing or in helping the poor or volunteering. Someone wanted to change the oil on all the cars just to help the church. Whatever it is, bring your kids. I don't want to go, Mom. Church is boring. It's dumb. It's stupid. I don't believe in that stuff. You pray for your child. You keep praying. You keep inviting. 3 things. Pray, invite, and bring. Pray, invite, and then bring them. Hey, I'm going to pick you up tomorrow, son. I'm stopping by your apartment, or I'm going to go knock on your door. Let's go. Hey, the night before, pray for your child. Invite them, bring them, and God will do a great thing. Well, thank you so much. Make sure you leave me a comment below, and I will see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.